This is Ready Set Reiki, a podcast about Reiki, the universal energy life force. From the curious beginner to the seasoned master teacher, welcoming all systems, all lineages, and all levels. Reiki is a journey and not a destination. And on this Ready Set Reiki journey, we refer to ourselves as guides rather than hosts, as we too are traveling, supporting each other, and learning on this Reiki journey as well. And with that said, I am your guide, Tracy C. Wright. And today on this Ready Set Reiki journey, we have Sarah Soltow. She is a teacher, a mentor, an artist, a lover of the light. Her joy is learning how to embody and share more and more of this light. Sarah, welcome to Ready Set Reiki.
Thank you so much, Tracy, for inviting me, for having me, and I think more importantly, for creating this kind of space.
Thank you so much. Well, let's just dive right into our adventure together. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I call myself a West Virginia girl because I was born and raised in West Virginia and spent certainly most of my life there. And, kind of a very regular kind of a life. I always knew that I was going to be a teacher as a young kid. I just always knew that. Although when I was in my early 20s, it was like, oh God, I'm not going to do that. But then I came back around and teaching is my avocation. It's like more than just a job, of course. I was an English teacher for many years in what I would call like Podunk, West Virginia, which was fine, which was great. I had a first marriage and a couple of children. That was, those things fall apart often, and that one did. And then I have currently a lovely husband, and we have moved around a little bit. So we moved from West Virginia to Arizona and lived 6 years in Arizona. And then it was pretty hot out there. If you're in El Paso, it's kind of intense. So I was ready to come back east. So we moved back to Richmond, Virginia, back east. And it feels, it's a lovely place to be. And I have my grown son, 3 grandchildren are here, another daughter in North Carolina with a couple of children. And then we have another daughter in California that it's great fun to go visit. So I feel like my life is where it's supposed to be. I am who I'm supposed to be, long journey to get there. And Reiki has certainly been part of that.
Beautiful. Sounds like an absolutely lovely journey. I'm sure you never imagined it would
Yeah,
take you to this point, right?
correct. Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So when did the Reiki come into your life? Did Reiki find you or did you find Reiki?
I think Reiki found me. Like I say, we had moved around a little bit. And at one point in time, my current husband and I moved back to a place where I had spent a lot of formative years, college, stuff like that. A small town in West Virginia, but a very wonderful town, Shepherdstown, if any of your listeners have heard, whatever. It's a great place. But I was being confronted by a lot of ghosts, a lot of like, oh, things that you do in your 20s, and then you go back and it's like, oh, I was confronted with all of these things. And I was also being confronted with a lot of anger issues and difficult stuff. So I embarked on a kind of a therapy with a woman who did something. It was not Reiki and it wasn't anything else, but it did kind of border on energy work. And it was very interesting to me because it was so helpful and it worked pretty well. I continued along that time, and I would say I was probably in my probably mid-late 40s at the time. Yeah, would have been. And another friend who I had known when I was very young, she was an older person than I, and she had always been kind of the woo-woo person. And I gravitated to her quite a bit, astrology and numerology and lots of, kind of occult or esoteric or metaphysical practices. And she was a Reiki practitioner. And she had invited me to work on a board daycare board in that town. And because the board was so dysfunctional, she offered Reiki to all the people who were on the board. Very good idea, indeed. And so I was on her Reiki table a few times, and I was having pretty profound experiences. Then in 2009, another friend had just kind of learned a little bit about Reiki, and there was the ICRT at the time was holding their annual conferences at Lake George, New York. So my friend and I went up there. I was not yet any kind of a Reiki. I was just curious. And I will tell you, this is one of my favorite stories, that I went there with the intention to see what kind of people these were. Because if they were too woo-woo, I was not going to be able to do it. And it was just, I just couldn't do that. And so I went, and it was teachers and nurses and social workers and masseuse and good people and grounded people and interesting people and smart people and helpful people and lovely people. And I was attuned that weekend with the promise that I would come back and take the Reiki classes with my friend who had started doing Reiki with me. And so 2009 was the beginning of my journey. And, it really just hasn't stopped since then.
Love it. I love that. And, taking that opportunity to check it out, how brave you were to just take that step to see that, wow, there's a group of intelligent people here, right?
Yeah, very interesting. It was like a whole new world for me. And as I went along, I think this may be important as well, because I was, wasn't sure. I was practicing, I was learning, I was doing, and it was maybe 2011, because I was still teaching full time and doing things like that. I met a woman who had a very bad spiral fracture of her leg. And I ended up working on her through an entire summer, like probably at least once a week for a couple hours or so. And some of the experiences that woman, who happened to be very energetically aware, she wasn't interested in doing anything, but she was very, very aware. So some of the interesting, like, kind of simultaneously, she and I would feel the same things going on within the energetic structures of her body, leg. And she would go, oh, it feels like, well, when I'm going, oh, yeah, I can feel that too. And so it became, with those experiences that summer, probably, it became just so apparent to me that this energetic sensibility and abilities, sensibilities, the whole thing was more real than anything I had, any other experience I've had. It was just like, oh my God, this is for real. This is real. And so then there was like, it was no stopping. There was no stopping.
No stopping. So you've been on this journey for a little while. So as a teacher and a mentor,
Mhm.
what is the common misperception about your work?
Well, I think with most energetics, and people just don't think it's real. It's just, oh, well, well, what does that mean? Well, what is that? Well, that's just not real. And, I understand where they're coming from, but it also bothers me that so many people will stop at that wall and not take a moment to step around it just a little bit to have the experiences. And, even my husband, who's a wonderful guy, if he's like in serious pain, well, maybe you can do some Reiki with me. But generally speaking, it's not real enough for him. So it bothers me, I must say, because if you move into the experience, it becomes, you have to be in it to understand how real it is.
Wonderful. So as you are living in the experience, as you share more and more of this light, what is something you wish your younger self knew about your current profession?
I've been thinking about this because when I work with people who are younger, usually in their 30s and 40s, people begin to wake up and they either need something or they're looking for something. And when I work with someone at that age, I just say, oh, that this is so fabulous that you have the rest of your life to do this. And, I'm a little on the elder side, I'm still cool and good and all that, but I'm moving along. And so, I have enjoyed my journey so much. And two, if I had started this particular journey 20 years prior, and maybe there were some opportunities, who knows, you make your choices and you keep on going. I just feel like, wow, to spend more of your lifetime, more of your years in this world, engaging in it more fully with a fuller sensibility of what is possible around us. That's what I would have wished for myself, and I admire so much in others.
Wonderful. Our next question is, when it's time for you to get your energetic tune up, what qualities do you look for in a Reiki practitioner or energy healer?
Well, the groundedness is very important to me, and sometimes you have to spend a little bit of time with someone and you to get that sense of. I have, had some experiences that I would choose not to repeat. And then I think those, they say that you learn something from everyone, and sometimes what you learn is what you don't want. And so I feel like I picked that up along the way, that when somebody comes at me, like they're the cool, they've got the answers, they know this, they know that. And I tend not to step in that direction. So I like someone who's calm and grounded in their abilities. Not abilities isn't really the word, though. It is more like their own sensibilities, that their practices work well for them and they are willing to share the practice. It's not so much like doing it to you, but sharing this experience and helping your clearing or your relaxation or your higher experience or your light, feeding you with what they can provide. And everyone is a little bit different. So there is that.
Right. And that's what's so amazing about working and being in this wonderful modality is there is a person for everyone. You'll find that person, find the one that resonates.
Yeah.
So we can take the same training together and then we would leave the training and we're going to do something in our own unique way.
Yeah, that's extremely, I think that's like really important I incorporate crystals, I incorporate vibration, I incorporate a couple other like things that I've picked up along the way. And it really is. It's like energy is energy. How are you going to bring it in? How are you going to use it? And you'll figure that out if you, keep integrity and honesty and a groundedness at your center core, then what you share should be fine, should be good.
Right. Wonderful. So, what advice would you give someone who's just entering this profession?
Well, I think, what we're just saying is that there are so many aspects, there are so many ways to learn. I am not one to I do not like boxes. And so there are being open to modalities as you move forward or move along in your journey. And also, I think patience is a good one, because a lot of aspects of how we use energy or how it comes to us, it's frequently not a straightforward path. So being willing to step off the path that you thought you were on, and if you're called in another, slightly different direction, to certainly like explore that, take a step, always be safe, always, be aware of your surroundings and what you're asking for, because you will get what you ask for. So, pay attention to that, but to explore. And I never thought of myself as like somebody who was like uber curious or, whatever. But now I just find that it's like, oh, I want to go find out more about that. Oh, I want to go find out more about that. But I'm also very discerning about it. It's not just every little thing, because I don't have time or money for that. But even right now, as I'm moving along, I'm being called in a very particular direction, and I am just now finding a couple of pathways that I can take to move me further in a direction that I feel a strong calling.
Wonderful. And this leads perfect into our next question is that, learning, growing, exploring, what books do you recommend?
Books. Well, again, I think of what you're being led to. I'm the kind of person, like, the book will jump off the shelf for me. A long time ago, when I first started my Reiki journey, to me, one of the most important books was Barbara Ann Brennan's Hands of Light. And I mean, it was like from another life. I opened up that book and I went, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And I still, it's still a very valuable reference. And when I, feel a need to flip through those pages, I will. Plus she has, I think it's 3. They're all very substantial. Another book that I found to be very helpful, which I just loaned, recommended to a young woman, one of these younger women who's kind of like captivated by energy right now, is the name is Anodea Judith. And she has a book, it's called Eastern Body, Western Mind. And it's lovely. And it was very, very helpful as I was beginning. I hadn't looked at it for a long time, but when I open up my journal books, I have a lot that, that I would copy out of there. I recently read and it's a book from, geez, I think it's like 2000 or so. It's quite a while ago. Gary Zukov, Seed of the Soul. That I think is like speaking to us strongly right now. And let's see, what else am I kind of drawn to? I'm kind of rolling back into the 80s and finding the books that were published at that time. Certainly William Rand of ICRT has a couple of good books, not just manuals, but a couple of his early Reiki publications, some collections and whatnot. They're good for like a new Reiki practitioner. But back in the 80s, what I'm finding is there was a big kind of like an enlightenment process. And there is a chunk of books, I mean, like that many, that are just full of interesting stuff. And these explorers at that time were like just pulling this information and putting it together. And they were in the 80s, I would call them serious woo-woo, but they are really very grounding now in terms of where our good levels of understanding, where they started. So I'm fascinated by that right now. I'm working with that right now, as a matter of fact. So
Right, right. And for our curious beginners, I like how you mentioned William Rand. The
yeah,
great thing about the International Center of Reiki is that it's contemporary. It can back its evidence. It's evidence based, so that
yeah,
helps you too. So it's staying
yeah.
current because you wouldn't think that the history changes, but sometimes there is translation issues. New things come up from the Gakkai, and he lets us know this, so we're aware of it. So as teachers, we're giving our students that information, the correct
Yeah, it's
information.
important. Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
lot out there. His information, his work is hugely significant, and it will stand, as
absolutely,
what do you
absolutely.
call that? The seminal work. Yeah,
Yeah,
the really grounding work.
right,
Plus, the
right.
idea that he spent so much time setting standards and teaching standards and practice standards. And that's really significant because it takes the training out of the realm of like, well, blah, 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 do this. And what I tell Reiki 1-2 students is that when you're interested in learning energetic work, you feel that calling. Reiki is a very, and I'm going to call it a very safe vehicle to drive. Reiki 1, Reiki 2. You're out on a new highway. You don't know where you're going. It's a new exploration, and you have a safe vehicle to carry you. You will learn how to drive this car through an energetic landscape. And then when you're ready for a slightly different model, you can go get that. That's fine. But this car, this vehicle, not car, vehicle, will keep you in a very safe place for as long as you would like it to.
Beautiful. And that's a really wonderful way to describe it, especially for our curious beginners and also for our seasoned master teacher, because that's a new
I
way of
agree.
kind of looking at it. Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful.
I'm good with metaphors. Never.
I love it. I love it.
English teacher, what can I say?
Yes. So, what other modalities do you offer?
Well, I work with crystals, and to me, it is one of those situations where it's like where you move into the realm, you learn what you are learning, and you allow the crystals to work with you. That may be a little more specific. Um, I don't use them. I do have some particular ways of using them on the body, but I wouldn't say that I have like a high-end training because I personally don't feel that that kind of training is what I need at this point in time. Let me put it that way. I also work with tuning forks, vibration, um, tuning forks and sound, crystal bowls. That stuff is amazing. And again, so long as I'm staying within a safe parameters of what I'm doing, then I have had some training with this, and it's like, oh, well, that's great. I mean, this suits my way of practicing right now, for now. If I need higher end training, I'll go get it. I'm fine with that. I would I love using my voice in a Reiki session. It is not the easiest thing I've ever done. And every now and again, I want to go take a course or something. And I did a sound healing course with Jonathan Goldman's group. And yeah, it was lovely. And it was pretty much for me to explore my own voice. But to put it out there in a Reiki session, it is powerful. And again, because I like to take my time learning these kinds of things because I don't want to mess around with energetics. It's, you know, you can hurt people with this stuff sometimes, but you not yes, no, Reiki safe, we keep it safe. I want to keep it safe. And I'm not interested in leaping beyond what I feel comfortable with. So I use those modalities when in a session when I'm being called to use those modalities. I am a Holy Fire Karuna practicing master, so all of those come in. There is another modality that I practice called access bars. I'm not sure. Sometimes I think people know about it. Sometimes I think not. There are mixed reviews with access bars. Some people love it. Other people hate it. So when I find somebody who loves it, then we do it, and it's very successful. If somebody doesn't like it, I go, no, it's not for everyone.
Do you offer classes? Do you offer trainings?
I do. It's generally speaking on a request basis. The way my life is engaged right now, I just do not feel that I'm in a position to go, oh, I'm offering a Reiki course on such and such a day. So when I meet someone along the way who is interested in learning Reiki, that's generally when I offer the class. It frequently is just a one-on-one or two. If someone wants a class, I may set up a date with that person and then ask a few others if they're interested. I always keep them small, they're intimate, there's plenty of time to experience, to talk with, to practice. There's plenty of time to explore.
Wonderful. I love that. So, where can we get in touch with you if someone's listening and they're like, yes, I love this. I want to
Yes.
connect?
My website is www.heartsong.online. So you can look up my name, generally speaking, also, and it'll probably pop up. But Heart Song became kind of my interior world being expressed to the outside world. And there are actually a lot of heart songs out there doing various things, which I didn't know. But for me, it is. It's I used to always sign little notes with a heart and an S, Sarah, right?
Yeah.
So as that moved along, and I was, kind of using that as my little signature piece, it became apparent to me that it was more than just Heart Sarah, it was Heart Song. And so then I incorporated that into my current expression of who I am.
Wonderful. So, this ends our one part of the journey together, and I'm going to continue to guide you into the next portion of our program, which is questions from our listeners. So, listeners submit questions, and I narrow them down. I call them the social media questions. So, let's get ready for this journey. So, question number 1, it starts off, I always feel so drained. How can Reiki or energy work help me improve my stamina?
Well, we all have our levels of personal energy, and always feeling drained to me indicates a need for more grounding and perhaps quiet time. So, practicing meditation, practicing maybe some breathing exercises, incorporating breath. There are like yoga breathing exercises that are built to create more energy in a person. And I think finding your level ground of what you need in order to continue your stamina. Part of it has to do with what are your daily activities. Part of it has to do with your age. Part of it has to do with your overall health. So, as a person who's in search of health and wholeness, you would need to examine those parts of your world and see where the balances are, and perhaps where something is a little out of balance. Could be even, in your diet. It could be many things. And begin to explore within yourself, what is it that's making me feel drained? What is draining? Is it an emotional drain? Is it a physical drain? What's actually happening here? Reiki can help you discern that. Practicing self Reiki, which I know as new practitioners, you're always told to, oh, self Reiki's, do self Reiki. Well, generally it takes people a while to actually do it. But the practice of self Reiki, the practice of giving yourself Reiki and helping to charge yourself in that way, it also helps you discern what is going on in your life, and asking yourself these questions, what is going on in my life? How can I balance my energetic needs?
All right, beautiful. Question number 2, how do you measure the impact of your work on your clients' lives?
Again, it's so subjective. I appreciate studies and standards that are measured with numbers and peoples and things like that. Mine tends to be much more relationship oriented. So I have a client and we have a session and we talk about it a little bit afterwards. And that person may want to know what I experienced. I'll try to get a little bit of information from that person. Then if this person gravitates to Reiki and continues with sessions, then it's like, well, what have your experiences been? And since we last saw each other, do you, I will tell people that Reiki generally, the one session will stick around for about 3 days. So take care of yourself for 3 days. Let me know how that turns out. We'll talk again. Keep me posted. If you need anything, call me. So those are the ways that I measure how Reiki works with another person. Those are the ways I measure it in myself as well. It's like, what is it doing? How, what is going on with me? How does this work with me?
Wonderful. And our third and last question, and this can be answered whether, teacher, mentor, or artist. In what ways are you innovating within your niche to stay relevant?
Right. Well, that will bring us pretty much to what I'm working on right now, which is a little bit it's a niche thing for sure. So within the context of my Reiki practice, I became fascinated with, or I became attracted to the idea of how this stuff is actually working. What is it that moves this through our body? What's going on here? The standard Reiki line is that Reiki has an intelligence of its own. This is almost quote, Reiki has an intelligence of its own. It will go where it needs to go. It knows where to go. And I'm going, yeah, I got that, but there's something else, and I can feel the something else that's going on. So that led me into a pretty deep dive of our internal connective tissue structure called fascia, and how fascia is a piezoelectric, it's an electromagnetic, it's basically, it is a system that carries energy throughout our bodies. Nobody's going to teach you this, generally speaking, because it's not quite in textbooks yet. And it took me into this realm of, again, back in the 80s, people were talking about, well, there's this way of moving this, and it might be the connective tissue. Oh, yeah. And it's like, yeah, it is. And then there are some scientists, medical persons who began to explore it much more deeply. I presented this information last year at the Northeast Reiki Retreat, and in a room full of Reiki practitioners, pretty high-end folks, like nobody has heard, well, two people had actually heard that this is a structure that is this is the way our body transmits energetic vibrational impulses. And so I continued with that. So with that study and the ideas of how vibration and frequency are basically the underlying basis of the universe. So how our bodies, this fascial system, connective tissue, is wired to carry these frequencies for health and healing and wholeness. How then can we work with these frequencies in order to enhance our well-being, knowing that we actually have this physical structure that carries this information throughout the body? So I'll be talking about that in a week, and I'm looking forward to that. And it basically, it also moves into the realms of light and photonic light, and how our bodies also utilize that energy, which is pretty woo-woo, I'm thinking, but it's also pretty grounded in good science now. So while I like the woo-woo, I also want it to be very connected to some scientific grounding. And I believe my niche is that that is happening right now, that all of the science is corroborating what mystery schools and esoteric teachers have been telling us for many thousands of years. This science now, which we have to have in order to go, oh, well, that's just too weird. The science is catching up with that and quantifying it and demonstrating it in a quantum universe that is here to support us. So that's my niche.
Wonderful. I love it. You had me at fascia. I'm a yin
Yeah,
teacher.
I mean,
I'm a yin teacher. So,
yeah, it's an amazing, yoga's the best. It
yeah.
is just the
Yeah. So
best.
it's like,
Yeah,
yes, hello.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll have to talk more.
Absolutely. So, is there anything else that you would like to share, maybe as we were talking and maybe you forgot or would like to add?
I think the one thing, and I'm going to feel like this is going to become my mantra. This is going to become one of the most important messages that I want to carry wherever I'm going. And that is that we, as humankind, we're basically on the edge of it's such a huge paradigm shift. And people within the energy world are aware of it. People within the astrological world are aware of it. We're becoming more and more aware, and it's becoming more and more apparent. So the message has to do with people who are energetically where we are, religiously, they might call it the light of the world, whatever. But it really is a light. It is an energetic frequency, vibration carried with light, and we embody it, and it becomes our choice. And I feel like it's also our responsibility to help move our entire world in the direction of basically it's light and love. So how do you do that? How do you do that? How do you do that? Well, you don't stop. That's for one thing. You just keep on. You figure out what you need for yourself. You figure out how to make your world a better place. You figure out how to use these energetic qualities that we all inherently hold. You learn how to develop them. You learn how to move them into the world, whether you're standing in line at Walmart, or you're teaching school, or you're preaching to the choir, or you're leading yoga, and you're also doing Reiki sessions, etc. All of it is the same light, love that we carry. So move into it. Enjoy. How do you embody more and more of this light? How do you do that? There are many, many ways to do it. So keep on doing it.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for joining me on this journey. It has been an absolute joy.
It is a journey, and I thank you very much for inviting me along.
All right, my
Thank you.
friends, thank you
Yes.
for listening. If you are interested in your question being featured on Ready Set Reiki, reach out at www.readysetreiki.com and find us on social media. Also, check out Feather Sister Wellness, where it is a platform that offers online, or if you're in the El Paso area, in person, yoga trainings, Reiki, and Reiki trainings. So, my name is Tracy Seawright, and this has been Ready Set Reiki.